Revealed, 10 sinister encounters in haunted Appalachia that will terrify you forever. Ava Miller had always known the Appalachian woods whispered secrets, but this summer, those whispers turned into sinister murmurs that crept right through her bones. Sunlight filtered through the thick canopies like warm fingers touching her skin, bathing her in the illusion of safety. Laughter echoed from the weathered homestead, but beneath it all, an unseen dread coiled tighter like a serpent waiting to strike. That it started with the neighbor's dog, a loyal golden retriever named Rex. One sunny afternoon, Rex had not just vanished, he evaporated, leaving nothing but earthy pawprints that seemed to fade into thin air. Ava's heart quickened as shadows flickered in her periphery, uneasy darkness lurking just beyond the reach of the sun. Kicking a pebble down the path, she felt more than just the ground shift. An eerie chill tightened her throat and sent her heart racing like a runaway train. Then came the night sounds, the low murmurs that echoed through her dreams with a spine-chilling cadence. They weren't just the winds rustling through leaves, they were voices, hissing secrets meant only for their intended ears. And when the quarter moon hung high in the sky, Ava noticed the symbols etched into the gnarled trunks around her family's homestead, glowing with a sinister energy, daring her to uncover their meaning. "Those symbols aren't just markings, Ava," Jamie said, her best friend who had always rolled her eyes at the town's ghost stories. But Ava felt it in the air, the threat lurking close, wrapped tightly in the tales of those who had come before. Was it true? Were these woods haunted by angry spirits? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With Jamie's skepticism still ringing in her ears, Ava dug deeper, driven by an urgent need to protect the safety that once cradled her childhood. Every hidden corner of their town became a mystery to unravel. But that night, when her father left for a job, leaving her alone with the creaks and groans of their ancient home, the shadows hitched a sly ride closer to her heart. Ava peered through the window, chills racing down her spine as she swore she saw movement just beyond the tree line. Her hands trembled, her skin prickling with a terror so palpable that it felt like a suffocating veil. Alone, cradled by her fear and with only silence as her company, the weight of the unknown crunched underfoot with every passing second. A faint knock interrupted the stillness, offbeat, misplaced on that quiet night. It sent a jolt through her, heart pounding like a drum. She glanced nervously at Jamie, who motioned for her to approach the door. They edged toward it, their breaths shallow, the air thick like fog. "Are you ready for whatever is on the other side?" Jamie whispered, her eyes wide and anxious. Just as Ava opened her mouth to respond, the doorknob turned slowly, the sharp creaking sound slicing through the night like a jagged edge. Their breath held tight, a fragile moment suspended in time. What awaited them beyond the threshold, an answer or a horror that could change everything? The door creaked open with a haunting reverberation, spilling distant moonlight onto the floor like spilled ink. Ava's heart raced, a frantic drum that played a rhythm of fear and curiosity. She stood frozen, her breath hitching in her throat while Jamie peered over her shoulder. They exchanged a look, their eyes wide, each reflecting the other's dread. Each second felt like an eternity as the darkness beyond seemed to breathe. A gust of wind brushed past them, carrying a chill that snaked down Ava's back. That knock, it had been too deliberate, too purposeful. Could it be someone lost? Or something else entirely? "Hello?" Ava called out, her voice trembling as it cracked beneath the weight of the night. Silence answered, thick and menacing, wrapping around them like a predator poised to pounce. Another gust of wind sent the door swinging wider, the night stretching forth like an abyss. Shapes lurked just outside the threshold, ambiguous and foreboding. Ava felt a pull, a cruel tilt of fate urging her to step forward. She fought against it, heart hammering, but the fear of the unknown ignited a spark of reckless courage. Suddenly, footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. Twisted shadows loomed at the edge of the yard, a mix of branches and something gray, shapeless. Was it an animal? Or was something human standing just out of sight? "Ava, shut the door," Jamie hissed, her voice barely a whisper above the wind. The urgency in her tone snapped Ava back to reality, a gut instinct kicking in. She hurriedly pushed the door, but it snagged on an unseen force, resisting her efforts to close it tight. Her hands trembled on the wood as she wrestled against the weight of the air that gripped the door. She saw movement in the shadows. A flash of white appeared and disappeared just as quickly, leaving her pulse racing. "We should call your dad," Jamie whispered, stepping back as the atmosphere thickened with intensity. "We need to get out of here." "No." Ava gasped, panic reaching a boiling point. "What if it's Rex? What if he's out there? Rex wouldn't just hide like this, Ava." Jamie's voice strained, urgency bubbling into hysteria. "Please." The shadows shifted again. Something stirred just outside the door. Ava spotted the outline of what almost seemed like a figure, tall and lean, its face obscured by the veil of night. She squinted, searching for clarity, a sign of safety, but all she could see was that ghostly outline growing closer, as if it was drawn by an invisible thread, and then, like a whisper's escaping from the woods, she heard it, words, garbled and twisted by the wind. "Help me," fear gripped her heart like a vice. The voice faded and echoed, a desperate plea that danced along the edges of her reality. In that moment, Ava knew the stakes were high. Whatever stood on the other side of the door, it wasn't merely a human in distress, it was an invitation into a darkness she wasn't sure she could return from. "Get ready," she shouted, pushing the door again with all her strength. The goblin touched the cracked threshold between worlds. Without warning, the figure lunged at them, swift and shadowy, and just as Ava's scream reached her lips, the door slammed shut. The sound rattled the frame, reverberating through the house with a finality that echoed in their bones. Ava backed away, heart pounding, the whispered words circling her thoughts like a sinister chant. Jamie pressed against her, trembling. What just happened? Ava's gaze flicked to the window. The shadows were gone, but the night felt charged, alive with sinister intentions. The air crackled, heavy with the promise of more than just terror. What if this was only the beginning? A shiver brushed her spine. Could they withstand the forces that sought to spill from the dark? When she turned back to Jamie, both their faces were pale, marked by a new reality, one they could never unsee. But inside her mind, one question festered amid the chaos of fear: what if the night had come not just for them, but for something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? The moment stretched thin, silence coiled around them like a snake poised to strike. Ava could hardly breathe, every second dragging out the panic that clamped around her ribcage. What was that? Jamie whispered, eyes wide, searching the dark corners of the room as though answers could leap out from the shadows. "I don't know," Ava replied, her voice quaking. She glanced back at the door, imagining the grotesque figure lurking just beyond it. It felt as if the wood pulsed with an unholy energy. We need to lock it." Jamie nodded, a quick, frantic movement. They stumbled to the door together, fear propelling them into action. Ava fumbled with the lock, her fingers trembled against the cold metal. With a definitive click, the door was secured, but its shadow still loomed ominously above them. What if it comes back? Jamie's voice was barely above a whisper, fraught with dread. Ava squeezed her eyes shut, battling against the visions flooding her mind, visions of a hand slamming against the door, the muffled pleas becoming screams. "It's just the wind. Just the wind," she repeated, a mantra that sounded increasingly false the longer she stood there. As if to mock her reassurance, the wind howled outside, howling a wailing tune that echoed through the hallways. It felt wrong. The sound wasn't just nature, it resonated with a life of its own, carrying whispers from the abyss. Ava glanced at Jamie, the light in her friend's eyes was dimming, replaced with a hollow dread that mirrored her own. Then, a soft tapping danced against the window, a rhythm that sent ice slicing through Ava's veins. She glanced at Jamie, who was already shaking her head, eyes alight with terror. "Don't," she hissed, retreating deeper into the shadows, but the sound continued, insistent, a rhythmic beckoning that seemed to pull at something deep inside Ava. I have to see. Ava trailed off, drawn toward that insatiable curiosity, though every fiber of her being screamed against it. She approached the window, heart pounding like a war drum. The moon hung low, illuminating the yard in an eerie glow. Shapes flitted among the trees, unsteady and chaotic. And then, she saw it, a figure, pale and gaunt, eyes wide and glistening with an unnatural light. "Get away from there!" Jamie cried, her voice cracking with panic. But the allure was too strong, Ava could hardly pull herself away. The figure raised a hand, almost in greeting, or perhaps in warning. "Help me!" The same voice from before, floating through the chill like a ghost. Ava's breath caught in her throat as she felt it, a shiver of recognition, like their destinies were intertwined. "It's begging," she murmured, her heart torn between compassion and fear. She could feel Jamie's hand grip her shoulder, tightening painfully as if to anchor her back from the edge of madness. "What do we do?" Jamie whispered. It was almost a plea. The wind shrieked, and the figure outside remained motionless, watching, waiting. Panic swelled like a tidal wave inside Ava, blurring her thoughts. This wasn't a rescue, it was a trap. In the corner of her eye, a flurry of movement caught her attention. A darker shadow, creeping, sweeping along the edge of the light, a shape without form. "Ava!" Jamie screamed. Ava pivoted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The room shifted as if the very walls leaned in, pressing down on them. She turned back to the window, but the pale figure was gone, replaced by a more ominous presence. A shifting darkness enveloped the yard, swallowing the moonlight and the last vestiges of safety. The door behind them rattled violently, as if something clawed at it from the other side. The house shook with the force of an unleashed storm. "What are we going to do?" Jamie's voice broke into Ava's thoughts, shaking her from the days of fear. In that moment, the house felt alive. All they had done was awaken it, and now it seemed eager to feed on their terror. With a swift glance at Jamie, they both knew they had to get out. "We need," Ava began, but then it hit her. "What if it's more than just us?" She gasped, realization dawning, the cold dread settling deep inside her bones. They were not alone. Before either could react, the door burst open, the hinges wailing like tortured souls. A gust of wind swept through the room, snatching at their clothes, pulling them toward the yawning darkness beyond, and there, silhouetted in the doorway, stood the figure they had just seen, a shadow with eyes gleaming like coal, stepping across the threshold without a sound. "What do we do?" Jamie whispered again, but the words barely registered as Ava stared into the abyss now breached before them. With the invitation of darkness before them, the real nightmare was only just beginning. The figure loomed, its features obscured by the shifting shadows of the hallway. Ava's heart raced, every instinct screamed for her to run, yet fear rooted her to the spot. It began to move forward, gliding rather than walking, almost as if the ground beneath it didn't dare touch its form. Ava barely managed to breathe the name, her voice quaking. She felt Jamie's grip tighten, alarm flashing in her eyes. They could retreat into the very darkness that embraced them, or face the shadow creeping closer with a presence that chilled the very air they breathed. "Run!" Jamie finally screamed, and that single word shattered Ava's paralysis. They bolted, bursting into the dim hallway, tearing through the oppressive silence as they raced to the staircase. The warped wood echoed under their feet in a frantic rhythm, amplifying their panic. The house seemed to inhale around them, the walls bending in close, the air thick with dread. They reached the stairs, 2 steps at a time, not daring to look back. The figure wasn't far behind, they could feel its cold breath at their necks, like an icy finger stretching out to snag them. "Where do we go?" Jamie panted, eyes wild as they reached the top landing. Ava scanned frantically, searching for a refuge from the shapeless terror that hunted them. "Through there!" Ava shouted, pointing toward a door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar, a sliver of warmth peeking through. They stumbled toward it, hope flickering like a dying ember, when the whispers returned low and murmuring, beckoning from all directions, as if the very house spoke to them. Close the door. They slammed it shut behind them, locking it, bracing their backs against it, breathless. The room was dim, cluttered with dusty furniture and a stale scent that made Ava gag. A single window offered a view of the chaotic night, obscured by shadows that danced like depraved marionettes. What now? Jamie whispered, her face pale, eyes darting around for something, anything to hold on to. Ava felt the familiar weight of helplessness pressing down again, mingling with bubbling terror. We can't stay here. Whatever that is at 1T stop. Suddenly, the door rattled violently, but not just from the outside. The walls around them shuddered as if the room itself protested against their intrusion. A chandelier overhead swayed grotesquely, casting fleeting shapes on the walls, writhing shadows that mimicked their fears and concerns. Ava blinked, trying to shake off the encroaching panic. We need to find a way out, but those whispers, she felt her sanity fray at the edges, a tiny thread unraveling as she recalled the feeling of recognition that pulsed through her when she first saw the figure. Do you think it's begging? Jamie's terrified voice pierced through. Or is it drawing us in? Memories rushed back to Ava, the stories from locals about the forgotten ones in the woods, the ones who couldn't leave a piece of her felt that they weren't wandering aimlessly, that perhaps they were the ones being hunted but also lured back, a sacrificial bait. A heavy thump rattled the door again. Ava turned sharply, fear coiling tight in her throat. Better to die trying to escape than face whatever that is, she said fiercely, tightening her grip on Jamie's elbow. But was there really hope, or was it already too late? With a shared nod, they inched toward the window, dread coursing through them. Just as they reached to pry it open, the whispers seized them again, louder now, filling their minds, a terrible cacophony demanding attention. Ava, a voice, chilling and familiar, slithered into her consciousness. It felt like someone she knew, but the memory was buried under layers of dread. What do they want? Jamie shouted, panic splintering in her voice. Suddenly, the door splintered, a dark hand clawing at it from the other side. A rush of icy wind blasted through as they barely managed to twist open the window amidst their muffled screams, but the voice lingered. Help me! With a desperate leap, they hurled themselves through the opening, crashing down a sickening drop into the thick grass below. Land of the unknown, the screams chasing them into the night. As they landed in the damp ground, an impossible question hung in the air: what if the figure had been leading them to salvation all along? Their fate felt threaded amid the whispers of the house still behind them, and the night held no solace. A darker path awaited, twisting deeper into that forest where shadows roamed. Ava gasped as she hit the ground, small stones digging into her palms. Distant shrieks echoed in her ears, the chilling whispers still ringing in her mind. Jamie was quick to shake off the shock, grabbing Ava's arm with the urgency of a lifeline. Get up. We can't just lie here. Jamie pulled her up, and they stumbled to their feet, disoriented but instinctively running deeper into the oppressive forest. Cold air sliced through the trees, and even the darkness felt alive around them, watching, waiting. Ava's breath was ragged, the woods alive with sounds that scared her more than the figure in the house. Branches cracked like bones under their hurried steps, shadows lurking just out of sight. Her heart pounded relentlessly. Every instinct screamed to get away, but the woods seemed to entangle them, drawing them in like a web spun by something sinister. Do you think we lost it? Jamie whispered, her voice trembling as she glanced back. I don't know. Ava replied sharply, but her heart sank. The woods could hide things better than the house did. It was in this instant of fear that she realized they weren't just running from the figure. They were running from something ancient, something that thrived on their panic. Rustling came from somewhere behind them, a low growl vibrating through the trees. They exchanged terrified glances, the reality beginning to sink in. It wasn't just their own terrified minds anymore. The forest had something to offer, and it wasn't safety. Keep moving. Ava barked, pushing through the underbrush. They wove in and out among the trees, avoiding gnarled roots like hidden traps. But the forest wasn't simply dark, it felt vibrant with unholy life. Whispers danced around them, circling like vultures, whispering secrets only they could understand, a language forged in despair. They stumbled into a small opening, the moonlight spilling across the ground like spilled ink. In this clearing stood an old stone well, its mouth dark, inviting, ominous. Something stirred deep down within the well, the air thick with an unnameable dread. "Should we look?" Jamie asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ava shook her head fiercely. She didn't want to know what lived down there, whatever it was, it thrived on fear. But curiosity crept in like poison. What if the well held answers? What if it could help them understand the darkness pursuing them? They hovered at its edge, heat from their breaths rising in the cold night air, but that when the growl came again, closer now. "Run!" Ava shouted, and they darted into the trees again, urgency feeding their momentum. The ground began to rise, leading them up a small hill as desperation sparked adrenaline. But the whispers turned into screams, familiar voices filled with agony, resonating through the branches. "Ava, Jamie, come back. We need you. Stop it." Ava yelled, clutching her head, feeling her sanity slip. They were losing themselves back there, in the house, and now it seemed those dark depths were reaching out to claim them anew. Suddenly, a figure emerged from behind a tree, not the one from the house, but another, a woman with hollow eyes and hair like twisted vines. She extended a hand, forcing her into the light of the moon, as if trying to pull them back. Ava froze, her heart stopped. But Jamie, clutching her tightly, yanked them down another path, away from the phantom that beckoned. The chilling howl of the creature pursued them, a sound like rusted metal scraping against bone. They could feel its presence closing in, lurking just out of sight, hunger pulsing from the shadows. What lay ahead remained a mystery, but the whispers kept melding the past and present, suffocating them with cries of despair. "Do you hear that?" Jamie's voice broke softly through the madness. Ava, fighting for clarity, strained to listen. "Help me," came the various voices, not just from the woods but something deeper, something familiar, echoes of their own fears twisting into the song of the damned. "Run!" She screamed again, the forest now a labyrinth of impending doom. Ahead lay a fork in the path, one leading further into the suffocating darkness, the other towards a sliver of shimmering light breaking the thick canopy above. Which way could possibly offer them salvation? The choice hung heavy in the air, as terror beckoned them to pick a nightmare, but the darkness had its own plans. Panic surged through Ava as Jamie pulled her towards the shimmering light. They dashed down the path, heartbeats echoing in their ears, muffled by the suffocating darkness. Each snap of a twig, each rustle of a leaf sent jolts of fear coursing through them. The air grew thick, a miasma of dread that felt tangible. "Go, go!" Jamie urged, stumbling slightly as the ground dipped sharply. They fought against the incline, desperate to escape whatever hunted them. The light above flickered like a dying star, casting eerie shadows that twisted and morphed around them, but the whispers returned, creeping closer, relentless. "Ava! Jamie!" The voices wrapped around them like clammy fingers, pulling at their sanity. "Shut up!" Ava screamed, pressing her hands to her ears. "Just shut up!" With every step, the forest leaned in closer, branches reaching out as if trying to ensnare them. The light became a beacon, but it felt distant, unreachable. Ava's breath was coming in gasps now, adrenaline giving way to her body's limits. "You're going to lose it if we don't get out of here," Jamie shouted, her panic apparent, eyes wide with terror. They rounded a bend, and the shimmering light expanded, revealing itself to be the entrance of a cave. The mouth of the cave yawned open, a dark maw that promised shelter but felt foreboding. Jamie skidded to a halt, and for a moment, they both stared, weighing the fear of the chase against the unknown depths of the cave. "Should we chance it?" Ava panted, instinctively knowing they couldn't keep running. Before Jamie could respond, the growl erupted again from behind them, ragged and hungry. It was closer now, the air electrified with its presence. "Get in!" Jamie yelled, taking Ava's arm and pulling her forward, diving into the darkness of the cave just as the creature burst into the clearing. A massive shadow shifted against the moonlight, a glimmer of eyes cutting through the dark. Inside the cave, the world transformed. The air was cool and damp, the echo of their breaths mixing with the rhythmic drip of water. The light from outside faded, leaving them in absolute darkness. "What now?" Jamie whispered. I don't know," Ava stammered, straining her eyes to see anything in the abyss. Panic gripped her, but in the blackness, she felt something else, a pressure, like the weight of countless eyes on her. It was oppressively silent, the voices had stopped, the growl muted, but that didn't mean they were safe. They pressed further into the cave, hoping it led somewhere deeper into the earth, away from the claws of whatever hunted them. As they moved, a strange sensation slithered over Ava's skin, as if hands brushed against her, whispering in a language she couldn't understand but resonated within her bones. "Do you feel that?" Jamie asked, her voice shaking. Ava nodded, unable to articulate her fear. It was like the cave was alive, breathing, shifting around them. Stalactites dripped from the ceiling like dripping fangs, and the walls felt as if they were closing in, eyes hidden within the stone watching. Without warning, the ground beneath them trembled, causing rocks to tumble from above. "We need to move," Ava shouted, pushing Jamie forward. They stumbled deeper, the tunnel twisting and turning, as claustrophobic darkness enveloped them, the air became thick, the feeling of eyes multiplied. It was as if every nightmare they had ever encountered in their lives gathered here, forming a wall of dread. Then, just as they thought it couldn't get worse, a soft sobbing echoed through the chamber. "Ava, Jamie," the familiar voices crawled from the damp stone, filled with sorrow, and they froze. "Is it?" Ava swallowed hard. She didn't want to believe it, but the cave was now alive with echoes of their past, pulling them back to the moments they had tried to forget. "Follow the sound," Jamie urged, her voice trembling. As they pressed forward, the sobbing morphed into laughter, cruel and mocking, filling the cave with an unsettling joy. But something darker lurked behind that laughter, something ancient. They reached a large chamber, illuminated by glimmering crystals embedded in the walls. In the center lay a misty pool. "What is it?" Ava whispered, stepping closer. Suddenly, reflections distorted on the surface, revealing scenes of terror, families crying, shadows of lost souls reaching out, hands tearing at each other in a desperate struggle for survival. The laughter grew louder, echoing against the walls. "Don't look!" Jamie screamed as the water began to bubble and churn, black tendrils of shadow reaching out towards them. The true horror was awakening, and time was running out. They had to decide, stay and face what awaited them in the depths of their own fears, or flee back into the darkness outside where the growling menace still lurked. A single, definitive choice lay before them. But escape was merely a pipe dream. In this world of shadows, what waited beyond might prove to be far worse. As they hovered at the edge of the pool, a chilling whisper permeated the space around them, "You can't escape." And that's when they realized the shadows were not just behind them, they were everywhere. Ava's heart thundered in her chest, drowning out the echoes of laughter and whispers that ricocheted through the chamber. "What do we do?" she gasped, her mind racing. The pool's surface rippled, distorting the horrific scenes as if they were trying to reach out, clawing at her with unseen hands. "We need to leave. Now," Jamie said, tugging at Ava's arm, but their feet felt rooted to the ground as if an unseen force held them captive. The dark tendrils pulled toward them, writhing and twisting, pulsing like some malevolent heartbeat. "Ava!" The whispers called again, sharper this time, pulling her focus back to the reflections. Faces swirled in the murky depths, faces she recognized. Friends, family members, everyone who had vanished. Help us," the chorus droned, the words layered with despair. A chill ran down Ava's spine. They're trapped," she murmured, horrified yet entranced. "No!" Jamie shouted, her voice slicing through the dread. "Don't listen to them. They want to pull us in. But the pool throbbed with power, and Ava felt a magnetic pull. Ava, please. Jamie's grip tightened, fear mingled with desperation as she stared into her friend's eyes. Ava's heart sank. How could she abandon those she once loved? As if sensing her turmoil, the laughter morphed again, monstrous, mocking. It echoed from the walls, vibrating in her bones. The chamber shook, dust and debris showering down like the sky collapsing. Choose. The shadows taunted, their voices intertwining, jarring. Choose. With each trembling breath, the decision grew heavier. Something monstrous yet familiar lurked just beyond the reflections. If she didn't leave now, whatever waited in the depths of that pool might stain her soul forever. Then, in a moment of clarity between the chaos, Ava turned to the cave's darkness behind them, the direction they had come from. What if we go back? Find another way? Maybe escape, but Jamie interjected, a frantic urgency in her voice. And let them in. You know what is out there. This is our only chance. The reflections flickered, and Ava swallowed hard, wrestling with the weight of desperate memories and lingering hope. A flicker of movement in the pool caught her eye. A face stared back. Not one of her past, this was something else. Someone, or something, awakened by their presence. No. She screamed. Then the pool erupted, the water boiling over the edges, sending forth dark tendrils that lashed out like serpents, aiming for their throats, seeking to draw them into the abyss. Run! Jamie shouted, the terror fueling her urgency. They spun on their heels, stumbling backward as they bolted away from the enigma of despair. The laughter crescendoed into a cacophony of insanity, the shadows shifting like a storm. Go! Go! Jamie yelled again, finding her footing. The cave shrieked in response, the demands echoing off the stone walls, mingled whispers swirling through the confounding darkness. Ava shot a glance back, and as she did, she caught sight of a shadow falling into the pool, a figure wrapped in darkness pulling something from beneath the surface, something that looked like a hand. Their pace quickened, adrenaline pumping through their veins. The air behind them grew heavy with the taut sound of laughter and wails, a storm brewing. We can't let it catch us, Ava gasped, glancing at Jamie as they raced deeper into the cave's heart. Suddenly, the path narrowed, pressing in on them like a vice. Cold stone brushed her arms as they squeezed forward. Do you hear that? Jamie panted, stopping mid-stride. A low rumble resonated through the cavern, a fierce growl rising from the depths, growing closer. Oh God, Ava whispered, and just as the darkness shifted eerily as if it was alive, the shadows surged once again, hungry. Don't look back. Jamie yelled, her eyes wild with terror. Ava could only push forward, heart racing, desperate to find salvation. They stumbled into another chamber, gasping for breath, but deep within the stone, the voices still echoed. You can't escape, a whisper slithered in, filling the air with chilling foreboding. Clinging to the edges of their sanity, Ava took a step back, glancing around the chamber, eyes darting. This time, she didn't know where to go. In that moment, the shadows began to take shape, twisting into grotesque faces, their mouths curling in sinister grins. They were trapped not just in the cave, but inside their very own fears, and then came the terrible realization that the shadows were not just in the cave, but also in their hearts. What's waiting for us in the darkness ahead? Jamie whispered, her voice cracking, uncertainty gripping her. Holding her breath, Ava looked deeper into the darkness. What lay in the unknown could very well be worse than the shadows they were running from. A chilling wind swept through the chamber, the weight of inevitability settling around them. In that stillness, a new voice emerged. Join us, they had to decide, confront the shadows before them or succumb to the abyss behind. Ava felt her throat tighten, stifling a scream as the words slithered through the cold air. Join us, the voice wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing her heart. Each syllable echoed, thickening the air, filled with promises of despair and corruption. What if we don't? Jamie choked out, gripping Ava's wrist as if she might pull her back from whatever horror awaited them. But the shadows inched closer, their grasp tightening, feeding on their fears. "Don't!" Ava shouted, trying to sound firm, but panic threaded through her words. The shadows writhed, hungry for any flicker of hope left in their hearts. "Is there any way out?" Jamie asked, fear glistening in her eyes. "We can't stay here much longer." The ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse, as if the cave itself was a beast, alive and waiting for one of them to falter. A sudden burst of laughter erupted from the walls, mocking their desperation. It surged around them like a thunderous storm, sending shivers racing down Ava's spine. She took a step back, her eyes darting, searching the walls for an escape. "Run!" she yelled, her breath escaping in ragged gasps. She took off toward the far edge of the chamber, dragging Jamie along. "We have to find a way out. We can't let them take us." The chamber stretched like a void, swallowing them up as they fled deeper into the darkness. A faint, flickering light beckoned from ahead, battling against the oppressive shadows. Their hearts raced with hope, but it felt like a trap, an illusion designed to lure them into a false sense of security. Ava slowed, nearing the light, the warmth engulfing her in a fleeting embrace. A stone archway framed the glow, but the air around it felt alive, crawling with the whispers of those who had come before, lost to the shadows. Their mournful cries echoed around her, rooting her in place, but Jamie yanked her back. "Keep moving," Jamie urged, pulling her away from the archway. As the laughter intensified, enraged by their defiance, they sprinted forward, the light fading behind them as they plunged into another corridor, the walls slick and unwelcoming. Darkness seemed to seep from the very rock, clawing up their legs, trying to drag them back into the abyss. As they rounded a corner, a sudden figure loomed ahead, emerging from the shadows. Ava froze, dread wrapping its icy fingers around her throat. It was a man, his eyes hollow, skin stretched tight over bones, a grotesque version of someone she once knew. "Help," he whispered, his voice a ghostly echo. "Join us." "No." Ava gasped, retreating into Jamie, who clutched her shoulder like a lifeline. But the man stepped closer, the shadows swirling around him, forming tendrils that reached out to grasp at their ankles. "Don't look!" Jamie shouted, yanking Ava's head away, forcing her to meet her gaze. "Just keep running." They lunged forward, desperation igniting their feet, but the corridor shifted, warping as if the cave itself was alive, closing in to trap them. The echo of laughter crescendoed again, a cacophony of torment that threatened to drown them in despair, but then Jamie stumbled, falling to her knees. I can't breathe." Darkness enveloped her, pulling her closer to the ground, inching toward a void that seemed endless. Ava looked back, the shadows swirling like a tempest. "Fight it!" Ava screamed, reaching for Jamie. "Don't give in. Join us." The chorus sang again, a seductive whisper that flirted with the edges of Ava's mind. She clutched her head, trying to shake them off, feeling herself teetering on the brink of surrender. Just then, a sudden crash reverberated through the cave. Rocks shifted, dislodging from the walls and cascading down. Ava's heart leapt. The entrance to another tunnel exposed, beckoning them. "This way!" she shouted, pulling Jamie up, pushing through the chaos. The shadows shrieked, battle cries mixed with terror, and Ava sprinted toward the tunnel, heart pounding, breaths ragged. They could hear the cacophony of the voices growing louder, blending into one solid, relentless wave, desperate to claim them. Then, just as they reached the tunnel's mouth, something metallic glinted in the dim light, a silver locket, half buried under rubble, tethered to something lurking just out of sight. Ava hesitated, able to feel the weight of a choice looming above her. The locket whispered secrets, a call from the past, an echo of those lost. "Don't stop," Jamie urged, panic surging in her voice. Ava's instincts screamed to run, but curiosity pulled at her heart. As darkness closed in behind them, she felt the locket's pull. What secrets lay within its grasp? Fear gripped her. Did she dare take that step into the shadows again? Will this be our end or the key to escape? She pondered, feeling the darkness rise behind her. The path ahead split like a forked tongue, one side promising safety, but the other? Another chance to confront what lay beneath. With the shadows closing in, Ava took a shaky breath, knowing their fate hinged on her next move. Ava's heart thundered in her chest, reverberating like a drumbeat of dread. The shadows hissed, creeping closer, their chilling presence stealing the warmth of her breath. She reached for the locket, fingers trembling as they brushed against the cool metal. A spark, an electric jolt, seemed to shoot through her as she lifted it from the rubble. "Come on. What are you doing?" Jamie's voice cut through the haze of panic, urgency lacing every word. Ava met her gaze, wide eyes filled with desperation. I can't leave it," she whispered, feeling as if the locket had a pulse of its own, alive with history. With a final glance at the throat of darkness behind them, the shrieks growing louder, angrier, she made her choice. Clutching the locket tightly, she turned, dragging Jamie with her into the tunnel. The oppressive darkness of the cave felt stifling. The air was thick, almost gelatinous, and every step they took seemed to echo in the hollow space around them. Each splash of their footfalls reverberated like a warning, as if the cave itself was alive and lurking, hungry for their despair. A glimmer of hope flickered ahead. A deeper glow, promising escape. But Ava's gut twisted, a flicker of unease quickly overlaid by the shadows that writhed, clawing at her from behind. "We need to hurry," she hissed, pushing Jamie onward. As they ran, images flickered in her mind, people she'd known, faces contorted in pain, whispering echoes of the laughter that chased them. The locket pulsed against her palm like a heartbeat, urging her to understand its secret, its pull impossible to resist. "What is it? What do you see?" Jamie cried out, glancing over her shoulder at the approaching darkness, her fear palpable. "I don't know, but I think it's connected to them," Ava gasped, fear lacing her words. Just then, the laughter roared around them, rising to a fever pitch, thickening the air as they stumbled into a larger chamber illuminated by strange phosphorescent stones embedded in the walls. In the center of the chamber sat a large, old wooden table, covered in dust and scattered trinkets that glinted like eyes in the dim light. Ava gasped. One by one, the items seemed familiar: broken toys, tarnished jewelry, remnants of lives once lived. Yet there was something sinister about their presence, as if they were offerings to the shadows that surrounded them. "Look!" Jamie pointed. There, in a corner, lay a series of makeshift cages, the shadows dancing around them, painting pictures of terror and despair. Old chains lay rusted and forlorn, whispering tales of captivity. Ava's stomach twisted. What if they got trapped here? Jamie whispered, her voice quivering. The idea clawed at Ava, twisting each heartbeat into a drumroll of terror. The shadows lived in this place, feeding off sorrow like parasites. Panic surged through her veins, and her grip on the locket tightened. "We need to leave," she rasped, but even as she spoke, the shadows seemed to grow bolder, their laughter mingling with the distant echoes of despair. Just then, the locket warmed in her palm, glowing faintly, illuminating a path along the edges of the chamber. "Ava! It's guiding us!" Jamie shouted, hope igniting her features. But just as she turned to head toward it, a voice deep and twisted rose from the shadows, slithering through the air like smoke. "Join us or be lost forever." "No!" Ava screamed, instinctively stepping back. The shadows surged forward, slashing at the edges of their reality, clawing for their souls. In that moment of horror, Ava knew this was no ordinary choice before her. The locket held secrets that could either free them or bind them to the madness of the cave eternally. But the shadows rushed faster now. They were upon them, the glow flickered, waning under the weight of encroaching darkness. What did she truly want? To flee? To uncover the truth? "Run!" Jamie cried, but Ava hesitated once more, heart pounding, trapped between the calls of the past and the pull of the impending void. In the chaos, something shattered a mirror from the table's edge, great shards reflecting the flickering light, distorting their faces, revealing glimpses of who they might become. What would she choose? The locket whispered promises, and Ava felt the weight of destiny settling upon her shoulders, heavy as stone. Will this be our salvation or our doom? With a shared glance of fear and determination, she braced for whatever awaited them in the hollow darkness, feeling the shadows close in, hungry. But beyond the chaos, a faint scuttling sound echoed from the other side of the illumination. A shadow, darker than the rest, emerged, and Ava's blood ran cold. What did it want? The chilling laughter intensified, merging with the scuttling as the darkness loomed, hungry for both her and Jamie. Together? Jamie whispered, her voice quaking. Together, and with that, they plunged into the heart of darkness, unaware of the twisted fate that awaited them. Will they find the truth, or become another offering to the shadows? Ava and Jamie bolted deeper into the chamber, the shadows swirling around them in a frenzy. The laughter morphed into a vicious chorus, echoing relentlessly. Together, Jamie whispered, squeezing Ava's hand for assurance as they approached the edge of the dimly lit area, heartbeats sinking in a frantic race against the darkness behind. Do you feel that? Ava panted, eyes darting to the glimmer of light from the locket, which pulsed steadily, as if encouraging them forward. Shadowy hands reached eager tendrils toward them, desperate to snatch what little hope remained. But the locket was alive, responding to an energy they could not see, a promise wrapped in foreboding. Let us keep moving. Ava yelled, her voice resolute. They stumbled through the space where whispers darted like fireflies, teasing them with fragmented memories. Families torn apart, laughter turned to screams, the past clawed its way back, compelling them to remember. Simultaneously, dread tightened around their throats. They found themselves in front of what looked like a massive altar made of stone, covered in remnants of the past trinkets from lives lost, their presence bordering on a heavy sadness. With fear crawling over her skin, Ava studied the glimmering locket in her palm. It felt like a guide, echoing the connection binding them to all who had been trapped before. Look! Jamie gasped, pointing at the center. A pair of eyes flickered back at them, two pinpricks of light from within the depths of the altar. What is that? Ava stepped back, heart pounding. The hands moved again, as if the shadows themselves yearned to pull them into something darker. What is it they want from us? She closed her eyes, the cacophony of voices hammering against her resolve. It felt like they wanted her to join the shadows, to forsake her identity. Stop! Ava shouted, we can't let them win. The waves of whispers intertwined, sobs flowing between the laughter, threatening her sanity. Is the locket our chance? Jamie asked, her voice barely rising above the sinister siren call, tempting them to join the rest. We can't give in. Ava shouted over the growing storm, not just of noise, but of spiritual despair encroaching around them. Jamie's grip tightened on Ava's arm, offering a tether to reality. Suddenly, the air trembled. A dark shadow surged forward, engulfing the space with a physical force that radiated dread. Ava raised the locket high, illuminating the room in a soft but radiant glow. The shadows recoiled, momentarily shocked by the light. We have to believe, Jamie. Ava cried. This is our power. With a deep breath, they stepped toward the altar together, the light of the locket pulsing in harmony with their racing hearts. They placed their hands over the cold stone, pouring every ounce of despair, fear, and defiance into their touch. We are not afraid. Ava shouted, fueling the light. The shadows writhed in pain as the altar erupted with life, a blinding light cascading through the chamber. Time seemed to stop as the pressure of the darkness clashed against the vibrant warmth of the light. In a moment that felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat, all sounds collided and blended into a symphony of chaos. Then came the silence. The light enveloped them, wrapping around their hearts and lifting the weight of despair. Ava opened her eyes slowly, letting the warmth seep into her. The shadowy figures began to shift, fading into whispers instead of screams, drawing back into depths unseen, surrendering to the light. Did we do it? Jamie whispered, her voice trembling but layered with awe. Ava glanced around, and as they slowly let go of the stone altar, the heavy air lightened, the chaos diminished, leaving only serenity. The remnants of delights danced like dust in the gentle glow of the locket. I think we did, Ava breathed, letting relief wash through her. Just then, a deep, echoing voice pierced through the murmur surrounding them. You both faced the darkness and emerged with light in your hearts. Know that you are no longer alone. A sudden breeze swept through the cave, and even amidst the relief, a shift in the air hinted that their struggle had awakened something within the earth, something ancient taking heed of the defeat of shadows. Ava and Jamie exchanged glances, panting with the exhilaration of survival, fueled now by hope instead of fear. They turned back towards the exit, ready to leave behind the darkness that had plagued this cavern. "Let us go home," Ava said, bearing the radiant locket close to her heart, a talisman not just of survival, but of triumph. Hand in hand, the two friends stepped back into the light, the shadows retreating forever into the silence from which they had emerged. In that moment, they knew whatever darkness awaited beyond could never swallow the light they reclaimed. As they crossed into the threshold, both literally and metaphorically, they emerged from the clutches of dread into the embrace of a new beginning. Remember, my friends, every whisper from the dark offers a lesson, and every darkness can be faced with light. So now it's your turn to be a beacon of light. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending, and for the love of all things eerie and wonderful, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this mind-blowing conclusion. You need to subscribe now, because this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.